Okay, hello guys, and yeah, I'm Roman Dubrovsky, and I'm really glad to see you, and I'm really happy to visit you. It's my first time in Pivorak, and also it's my first time in Lvov, just in this city. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, and I knew before that Pivorak is one of the friendly and atmosphere um, Ruby community in Eastern Europe, and for now it's true. So thank you for that. Yeah, and I'm I'm working in Data Rockets. We are international company, and we have some gift for you. It's a really cool sticker park, and you can find it in our table here. And yeah, yeah, and also I'm a member of Minsk RB Ruby community, and I also want to invite you to Minsk. And if you visit Minsk, just ping me in Telegram, and I can help you organize a pre-party, after party, after party, and pre-party, and any and hookah bar, of course. Okay, so probably we can start our speech, and my speech is about life with GraphQL API, and I'm not going to discuss today a GraphQL language. I'm not going to discuss how we can set up and start developing on GraphQL or positive and negative side of GraphQL technology. And right now, I'm just going to say about our story, about how we work with GraphQL, how we start develop it, and how we get some results with that. So I'm going to say about our trip from a small components on our React application with GraphQL queries until when we rewrite a big part of our application to the GraphQL. And also, I am going to discuss some real issues and some unclear issues for guys who didn't try to use GraphQL API in production. Also, I'm going to discuss some items which I discuss and which people ask me in after parties. Yeah, I'm really love after parties. That's true. And yeah, and if we say about my GraphQL experience, we almost 2 years we spent for developing and supporting GraphQL API for our single page application. Also, we decided to make our GraphQL API public and make some preparation for that. Also, I have just some experience with making integration with external GraphQL API. So let's start our speech. And the part 0 is just a GraphQL. And yeah, I didn't want to discuss GraphQL, but I understand that somebody can know very much knowledge about GraphQL. And first of all, I want to suggest you this article. This is article from Evil Martian's blog. It's about how you can set up GraphQL and try it in real examples. And of course, I can suggest you official documentation by GraphQL. And yeah, about GraphQL. Who know what is it? Yeah. And who tried to use it in a real production application? Oh, if say truth, I expected more people. But okay, but the guy who used it in real life, you can on the question part just say your comments about GraphQL or just ask some question interesting, and but mostly bring some comments and also discuss it with me on our after party. Yeah, and for guys who don't know GraphQL, all of us know the classic and unique example of IT education. And I'm going to update it and go to the next level. And I'm going to teach you GraphQL in 3 minutes. It's my craziest idea, if I say truth. So, what is GraphQL? First of all, GraphQL is a query language for structure your API, your data on your API. And GraphQL modeling your business domain via graph. And in this graph, every entity is a type. every type has a list of fields, and some of types can be connected to other types via these fields. If we say about schema, GraphQL schema is the most important part of our GraphQL language. It just describe our types and the relationships between them. Also, it usually GraphQL schema includes two main parts: is a queries and mutation, where mutation just describes some actions which we want to perform and describes response, and queries just describes the structure of data which you want to get from our requests. And if you say it about GraphQL Ruby, Ruby is a gem, which is official Ruby implementation, and it's help us describing our GraphQL schema. Also, it's help us serialize data which we can provide, and also it implements some execution engines for our mutations and queries. And of course, this game includes a generator and helpers for quick setting up your in your application GraphQL API. I hope you understand what is it. I'm really trying to do it better. Yeah. So the next part is a prologue. And here I just want to say a start of our stories, how we start. And probably like 3 years ago, we get a project. And it was a project where front end was like a mix of Backbone and React components. We have some versions of REST API, and we had a really bad Backbone data store, which was patched and modified at really much time, and we have really big problems, a lot of bugs with that. And but still, most our application was just a Rails server-side rendering. And our customer says, guys, I want to be a modern. I want to create some single-page application. I want to have a reactive UI, and I want that my customers was really happy of our UX. So, okay, and we said, okay, we can help you, and we can help you make new application on React. Okay, decided, made it, and in sometimes we faced with underfetching problem for REST API. And the main idea of this problem that we sent so much request for just for loading our page. We just needed to load a lot of data and send a lot of requests. And we thought, what we can do with that? And decided to use GraphQL. Also with GraphQL, we started to use a relay. Probably the main reason of relay because Apollo wasn't really good this time, and it wasn't really finished, and we decided to use relay because it was in this time it was better and better supported. And of course, relay provided us a new data store, which helped us a lot, and we increased the number of bugs of our old data store. And this time we think, and when we started design our GraphQL API, we didn't know anything about that. We didn't know any good practices about GraphQL design. We didn't know how we can do it, what we should do. And we just find a good example. It was a beta GraphQL API of GitHub, and we just stole a lot of ideas from this API. So, and like that, our adventure started. Okay, and we started design our application, our GraphQL API, and first of all, we started designing it for our internal single-page application. And the first point which we found that it helped us to make a good convention for organization our business logic. So my next point is conventions. So if we check a GraphQL philosophy, it's push us to isolate our business logic layer to the representative layer. And yeah, and we have this approach of we can just save anywhere our business logic layer, our services, our other business logic objects and reuse it in our REST API and GraphQL API. And it works really great, but Rails way. Our project was started probably more than 10 years ago on Rails 2, and this time Rails way was really popular. And a lot of guys discuss what is better, fat controllers and fat models. We still had in our project a lot of games like act as good pagination. This time patterns was only for losers and Java enterprise developers, because cool guys shouldn't learn patterns. It's not cool. And yeah, and ton of filters, callbacks, and conditional validation and other stuff. And yeah, it's a good approach. If I say the truth, it's a good approach. But it's a good approach only for a blog post which you can make in 5 minutes, but not for a production application. Okay, but it was really many years ago. And of course, we started refactor application. In our company, we have a Boy Scout rule. It's a rule when if you work on some place of code, you should make it better. You should rewrite it. So in our case, it meant that you should move all logic from your model and controllers into the service, refactor it, write tests, and everything should be good. But usually Boy Scouts sleeping on us, because if we need to make really small changes, we don't really want to refactor. But when we start to use and rewrite our application to GraphQL, we needed to reuse a big part of codes. And of course, it was a good reason for us to start a global refactoring to our application. And we started to move our logic to the services, to form objects, to just installed Pandit for policy services and move some really big queries into scopes and query objects, and it was better. And if we check if before we have control something like that, just initialize scope and write a really huge query, we move all this code into query object and can reuse it into our GraphQL type. And probably we should have the same approach for mutations, because before we write something like here, just initialize some form for validation, authorize it via Pandit policy, then validate our data, and if data valid, we move it to the service to make some business logic, just creating or updating some records, and sending mails, and so on and so forth. But if we try to do it for mutation, we still have a lot of code duplication. And if we return back to the GraphQL schema of GraphQL philosophy, we see that GraphQL says, move authorization and probably validation logic into a business logic layer. Okay, no problem. Let's do it. And how do you think, what is the best approach of that? Huh? Somebody say Trailblazer? Oh, Nick, hello. I did not see you, but go away, it's my presentation. It's your part. So yeah, we moved all our authorization, validation, and just business logic into the services, and it should work, but not. And if you see the mutation, we found that IDs for GraphQL schema is not like IDs in our database. And if we run our query for getting IDs of some array, we probably expect it to get something like that, ID and number from database. But in reality, we have a really unique ID for all nodes in our GraphQL schema. And so we just started to provide all arguments directly. We have the next schema of services. And if we say result of our refactoring, we really start a big refactoring of our application. And the cooler thing in that that we created a convention about how we should create our services and how we should design our business logic. And it was probably the biggest win for us. And also we moved validation house and to the business logic to the services, but we don't use Trailblazer. Sorry, Nick. But if say summary about this point, I just want to say that GraphQL is not shouldn't be a reason why you should start refactoring the application. If say truth, you can start refactoring without setting up GraphQL in your application, or you can duplicate a lot of codes in GraphQL mutations and don't worry about it. I just want to say that GraphQL works really great with all best architecture practices in Rails. And also, you should remember about IDs and processing differently. Okay, so we started write our GraphQL API, and the first issue which we found is a pagination. And yeah, you can request some list of items and get really billion items from one response. And of course, it works very slowly. And yeah, we should process it somehow. And we can remember our experience from REST API and try to add it to arguments. For example, per page, a page, and paginate it. For example, VLGM will paginate. And it works, if say truth, but what about metadata? How we can understand how many pages we have for our pagination, or how many items we have? And of course, we can add separate field for the entity and just add a separate field and get this data with our list of items, but it really sucks. From my side, I don't like this approach. But if say truth, it's not a big issue for GraphQL, because if you visit a GraphQL documentation, find here are the best practices section, you can find how we should do pagination and just best practice for pagination in GraphQL. And in Ruby, it looks really easy. You just you can define a special connection time, and it's automatically generate you a list of items and some metadata, which you can use for your pagination. And probably you can read about it more. I will leave all links. Okay, the next item is justification. And if say truth, I don't really want to edit, but also a lot of people ask me, what do you think about? Which approach is better? Use mutation for authorization or just a separate point? Which approach is better? And the main idea what I want to say is that each approach works good. For example, separating point really great for some cases. It allows you to make different endpoints for each type of authentication. You don't have a hell of redirects and don't need to reinitialize, for example, your relay application. And it works really. Okay, it's really easy. It's really easy to create, and it's really easy to use. And for example, I can say that you probably should use this approach for public GraphQL API, or when user don't have access to some data when he didn't make a sign-in. But if you say it about approach when I authorize via mutation, probably it's also looks good, and sometimes it's really can be easy, but you can face it with some issues, like it can be really hard for OAuth way, and you can have a really big help with redirection on authentication. And also, if you create this approach, you need to think about updating all your data in your relay store after justification. And probably in some cases, redirect this easier way. But also, all of this depends of your business reality and depends of your application. The next item is authorization. In fact, it's really easy to do. The main rule, you should delegate authorization logic to the business layer. And I can find 4 issues with that, but it's not really big issues. First of all, mutation authorization you do into the service and don't need to think much about it, just process the error. Also, you should expose authorization rules, and you can just add a separate field for that. For example, can edit, and in your client you can understand: can you perform this mutation or cannot? Also, scoping is also really easy, but but you can face with some issues for field authorization. For example, here we have some fields which only a limited scope of user can get access. And how we should process it? Of course, we can return error message, like not authorize it, like we do in REST. But in this case, we broke the full query. Another approach is just return null object. If safe truth is not a best approach because you don't know reasons why you do it, and you mix cases when you just don't have access or when you just don't have this item in database. But for now, it's a better approach which we can find. The next issue is an n+1 queries issue. Just imagine we have this query, but it works slowly. We check our Rails console, see these logs, and need to fix it because we see that it's n+1 query. And also, we can use a GraphQL batching for that. You can find a good articles about how we can use it and fix your n+1 via GraphQL batch. Also, we have some issues with Sketch, but unfortunately, I don't have time to explain it. I just want to say that it's really hard and not real clear to use. OK, we have some our external API. We have some application which works with API, but our customers go to us and say, hey, man, we have a cool GraphQL API, and also we have a REST, just a legacy REST, which we need to support. Let's move all our customers to GraphQL API. We said, OK, no problem, man, and started to prepare our and started to build our GraphQL API public. And also, like disclaimer that all these items which I discussed right now, you also should remember about that for your external API as well. But we were really bad guys and forgot about it and didn't do it systematically. But yeah, the first issue is the documentation. And I want to say that GraphQL schema is the best documentation which you can have. You just need to add description so that user can understand what is the type, what is the field. And also, we can use a graphical. It's a special tool for developers so that he can test GraphQL APIs, and also he can test GraphQL APIs, get some result, and just have some short documentation explorer. Also, if you need to generate just a page without getting access to your data, because the previous approach can get a real data from database, via this approach you can perform some actions, some mutation, and change your data in database. You can just generate a documentation via GraphQL docs. The next item, what I want to say, it's just changed my mind in some time. It's that GraphQL is not that field in GraphQL is not just a value with some type, because of course it looks like it's just a value, but if we check our requests, we see that some fields have arguments, some doesn't have. And if you understand that field is like a function which gets some arguments and returns some value, it's just in this case you can have more just approaches and how you can design your GraphQL API. And for example, we had the next case, like we have some content which user can set up via Markdown, and in some cases we should return the raw content. In some cases we should format it into HTML for rendering, and via format argument we can process it. And also from security, validation, and documentation perspectives, you can use a custom times. And if we more or less understand how to define a data types, because we do it for our models, some of our data from database, we also can define a enums type and scalar types. It's make our code easier to understand. Also scalar type, in scalar type you can define some validation. Okay, and the last part, it's about security. And can you help me how many time I have? Oh, okay, amazing. So 4 months ago, I made a lightning talk in St. Petersburg conference about that field is not a field, it's not just a value, it's a function. And I have the next slide. And if we think about what is wrong here, I just say that I process order really bad. And just imagine, we have the next situation. We have some fields items, which returns a list of items, and also have some arguments like number for pagination and order for ordering it by some values. And we just get some string and move it to the order function. And probably it's gonna work really great if we pass correct data. But we don't have any validation, and the user can get this really perfect error with all our big trace and broken SQL query. And probably another really bad thing that user in this case can try to write SQL injection, because order is not really safe C method. And in these cases, we just should use a title. Oh, title, God. Yeah, we should use enum. And enum allow us to understand scope of values which we can process. Also, it makes some additional validation, and it helps us. And the main point here, just don't trust user and validate your data. And I have some yeah, some points to discuss, but unfortunately I don't have a time, and let's make an epilogue for my talk. Yeah, unfortunately I don't have enough time to discuss all items which I want to discuss. Here are some items which I planned before, which I ready to discuss, but just don't have enough time. And also I know a lot of items which I know that there are a lot of items which I don't know, which I didn't use before, and if you know some of them and can share some knowledge with me, just go to me on after party or on a coffee break, say hello, and we can start our discussion. And thank you much. I leave a gist with all links here, and any question?
Roman, thank you, and sorry for interrupting with this minute stuff. I want to have a couple of questions from audience. Oh, Volodya, okay.
Okay, thanks for talk. Very good introduction talk to GraphQL. It sounds a little bit like a hateful talk. So, did you try input objects and not use raw arguments, but rather use input object and reuses input objects?
Yeah. It's here.
But did you try it on a project?
Yeah, of course, of course. It's if you say it about best practices, it's GraphQL and the Relay library suggests us to use input objects for all mutations, and of course we use it, and we use only input types.
Thanks. One more question? No, then say, oh, one more, the last one.
Yeah, hello. Do you have some metrics before refactoring and after? What exactly become better? Because maintainability of API is good, but other parts maybe API become very fast or I don't know. Page load and other stuff.
We improve our page loading time, and now we have just our page loading quicker than before. I didn't prepare it, but probably in 2 seconds we had really big problems with page loading.
Okay, and can you share your thoughts about GraphQL from product perspective and from team perspective?
Product
and team perspective.
From team?
From product and team.
What do you mean about team perspective?
Like your team like GraphQL or
okay, got
you
it.
hate each one like.
Oh, if say truth, I'm really like GraphQL, and I really hope that our team also like it. And probably half years ago, our team on this project has been splitted to teams, and I moved to other project, and right now I really want to return work with GraphQL, and probably one of my main reason why I prepared the talk about GraphQL, because it's something which I lost, and yeah, Dima, please move me to projects with GraphQL. It's true. And about product, yeah, we improve our performance, and if saying the truth, I really enjoy to work with GraphQL. We really fix some issues with that, like page loading. Also, right now we fix issues with version API versions, and yeah, it's cool.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that you have to talk to Volodya because he loves GraphQL very much.
Yeah.
So, but Volodya is hiring, so.
Okay.
Actually, not every newcomer in Lviv for the first time deserve a Pivorak t-shirt.
Yeah, and also probably my last word. So I'm ready to go to Shisha with you and discuss everything what you want. Yeah, and I just want to say, just enjoy what you're doing and enjoy your work. Thank you.
One moment. There's just today, someone from our community came to the Pivorak shop and asked, Anna, where can we buy a Pivorak t-shirt? I say, you can't buy it. You have to deserve it. And now, the first time in Lviv, Roman deserves a brand new Pivorak t-shirt. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Woohoo!
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to say that I really love to visit a lot of conferences, and I really love to collect some merch from this conference, and it's cool. For example, this is from St. Petersburg, and yeah, now I have a new red t-shirt. It's cool. Thank you much.
Thank you.